wonder what David Sullivan thinks about all of this that's going on at the moment. My thoughts went to Sullivan. It's not an easy thing to say, that. To follow my train of thought here, you're going to have to, I think, sort of put your own opinions to one side and put yourself in the position of David Sullivan. But if you can just do that, park your own opinions, whether you're Moyes in, whether you're Moyes out, whether you think Moyes can turn it round, whether you think he's run its course, whether you want to see more players, different players, whatever, park your own personal opinions. And just for the moment, imagine you're David Sullivan. You're an owner of a football club. Forget the percentages and the ownership and Kretinsky. I just want to keep this as simple as possible. Because I don't know how involved Kretinsky wants to be. He owns some shares. How involved in the day-to-day running? I would suspect not an awful lot. Well, we know that Sullivan is involved in the day-to-day running. We also know something else. Sullivan likes all the transfers and he likes getting involved. And we're dealing with a man who's had to relinquish a lot of the power and a lot of the stuff that he likes doing, particularly the transfers. Because he's sort of been forced into it, I think, as far as he's concerned. He's relinquished it. He's had to say to David Moyes and Rob Newman, there you go, that's yours, I won't get involved. And the one time he did try and get involved, relatively recently, which was, I think he fancied a little gamble on Memphis Depay, he got his wrist slapped, really, didn't he? It was a case of no. And David Moyes sent him, let's call it this, coded messages in his press conferences, saying we don't do that at West Ham, the manager buys the players. We've got a different model here. That's what he said. However, Sullivan was probably thinking, oh, yeah, we'd quite like to get that player in. Now, when I say put yourself in the position of Sullivan, so Sullivan's got a lot of money invested in the club. Sullivan, we know, likes to get involved in the transfers. Sullivan sort of fancies himself as a little bit, not the full manager, but you know what I mean. He likes to get involved in all the rest of it. He's seen perhaps some of his favoured agents cut out of the equation as well, and seen David Moyes and Rob Newman maybe use some of their favoured agents, or Warburton's come in and we've used his agency a couple of times. But Sullivan might be looking at it thinking, hold on a second, I'm not sure you're doing a better job than me. Again, park whether you think he's right or wrong to be doing that, just get in his mindset. As someone that's relinquished the power of what he would perceive to be his company. Look, it's our club. West Ham is our club. Forget that for a second. What's Sullivan's mindset like? Sullivan considers it to be his club. He paid for it. It's his club. And he's probably looking at thinking, hold on a second. I've given a lot of my responsibility to what he would consider to be middle management. And I think they're mucking it up here. I don't think they're doing particularly well. Now, I often think David Moyes has got a lot of credit in the bank for the stuff that he's done. Right? But that's my own opinion. So the last 2 seasons, David Moyes has done really, really well. Plus, the season before, he saved us from relegation that season as well. I think that counts as something. But again, I park my opinion. It doesn't matter what I think. What does Sullivan think? Well, Sullivan's already shown that David Moyes can save him from relegation. He'll sack him. He did it with Pellegrini. So I started asking myself this question. I'll ask you this question. How safe a ground is David Moyes on with David Sullivan? Is he unsackable? No, I don't think that's it. Is David Moyes going to get sacked in the next game? No. However, if we went and didn't get any wins in our next 4 or 5 games, and we were, after a little chunk of the season, rooted to the bottom, would David Moyes be at risk of the sack? I think he would. And the reason I'm talking about this now is not to sensationalise it or scaremonger it, but we are bottom of the league. I'm speaking about it now because it's still the transfer window, and this is really the angle I want to look at. Is Sullivan likely to release more funds now for the remainder of the last 10 days of transfer window, bearing in mind probably he thinks David Moyes isn't doing a particularly good job? Imagine if you were the owner of a football club and you would basically, he signs the cheques. David Moyes, Rob Newman turn around and say, OK, we want a Gers. Is this much? Oh, right, OK, I'll sign the cheque. We want Flynn Downs. Oh, OK, I'll sign the cheque. Cornet is a cheque. Go to him again. David Sullivan. Anyone fancy Depay? No, Mr. Chairman, not Depay. Thank you very much. Can we have 35 million for Scamacca, please? All right, OK. So he's signing the cheques. If you were doing that, would you be particularly impressed if your employee wasn't playing those guys that have cost you a load of money? Because one of the reasons I thought that David Moyes wouldn't want Memphis Depay was if Sullivan had bought him, David Moyes wouldn't play him. Well, Sullivan's probably looking, thinking, well, hold on a second, you don't even play in the guys you're buying at the moment. And even after that game that we've just seen against Brighton, he's now saying, oh, these signings, I might have to revert back to the team, the older players, basically, more established players. These players are taking a while to settle. I've got to be honest with you, if I was David Sullivan and David Moyes came back and said, I need 2 more players, I'm probably thinking, I'm not so sure. Number one, because of what you've done already and the way I don't feel you've spent my money particularly well. And number two, because I'm not sure you're going to be around for that much longer, basically. I hope you are, but I'm not sure. I can't be certain. I'm not seeing an awful lot of promise that shows me definitively that you're going to be around to bear the fruit or basically reap what you sow in terms of spending a lot of money in a transfer market. I've got more points to make. Before I do, I just want to point you in the direction of our fantasy football game, which you can play by downloading the Spitch app, which you can use by clicking the link below. You all know about fantasy football. You know when you sign up and you get a fantasy football team, you know, like the little mini leagues? Well, Spitch is like that. It's got lots of little mini leagues. We've got our own Hammers Chat one, which you can join up, fight it out with myself and Gio. He's had a good week. I've mucked up my team. That's my excuse anyway. And what you can do is it refreshes every single week. You could be top of the tree, top of the Hammers Chat tree. You can do that if you want to. You can play in other mini leagues, which are free to join, but you win prize money. And if you're really into your fantasy football, then you can put down a stake, not a pork chop or not a beef steak. I'm talking about some money, and you can win some massive prizes. Every single week, Spitch give away up to £70,000 worth of cash prizes in a fantasy football game. It's an excellent game. It's very, very easy to use. Click it, well, download it by clicking that link below. If you do so, please do sign up to the Hammers Chat League, the little mini league there. We've got about 70 participants. It'd be nice to get up to 100 on it, so please go and check it out. The Spitch app is 18 and over, by the way. Gamble responsibly and all that sort of stuff. Use the link below. Back on to Sullivan. So I'm looking at this, I'm thinking, I'm not entirely sure. So if David Sullivan is thinking, well, I'm not sure if you're going to be around, maybe I will buy Depay. Maybe, just maybe, I'm not going to sanction the moves to the last couple of players. Now, one of the players is Hans van Aken. Now, I think it's really interesting what he said. Let me just read this to you here. These are Van Aken's words. This may be my last chance to play abroad, and I want to take it. A lot has already been written about me going. It's no longer a surprise. I've thought about it. The club in question is interested, obviously West Ham. Discussions with Club Brugge begin on Monday. We'll see where that takes us. That means basically today. He's having talks today. Now, as I said, look, if this is the guy that David Moyes wants, we should probably get him. I don't think it's a bad punt. I don't think it's a bad punt at 10 odd million or whatever it might be. It's not a massive outlay. However, I think it is probably a bad punt if it's not going to work. There's no way of telling that, because this is very much a player cut in the cloth of David Moyes' vision of how he wants to play. And this is the thing. I see a lot of people saying, get David Moyes out, get Potter in. I've done that one before, all right? And this is before we lost to Brighton again this time. I'm not sure how much of a tune Graham Potter would get out of the West Ham players, because he likes a very certain type of player. We don't seem to have many of them. In fact, when I was looking at that game against Brighton, I was looking at someone small, someone diminutive, someone a little bit sneaky, a little bit wool, a little bit way, to try and make something happen. We didn't have anyone. We really didn't. And this is the reason I say I think I would really like us to sign a defensive midfielder and an attacking one. And I just wonder if the players we are signing are so tailored to David Moyes, and I get that, they're David Moyes' players, that we're sort of screwed if it doesn't work out. Because there's something going on at the moment, and everybody's got their suspicions, and everyone's got their reasons. It might not be one, it might be a load of them. Maybe everybody's right a little bit. But whatever it is, it doesn't look to be a particularly happy camp. It doesn't look to be a particularly motivated team. And I know for a fact that there are certain leaks coming out from the club, as I'm sure you'll have heard them anyway, that the players aren't particularly happy with training. Now, if I've heard it, then the chairman has certainly heard it. And all these sort of whispers and basically bad news gossiping. This bad news gossiping that goes on will get back to the owner. Now, I think the owner's being, I keep saying the owner, I know there's lots, but I'm just dealing with Sullivan now because he's the one that gets involved for reasons I said earlier. I do wonder if he's looking at it and he's hearing all this stuff. Because what you can't do is you can't back a manager with loads and loads of money in January. In the summer window in August, September, in August, and sack him in September. But one thing I do notice is they're very much the story and the narrative doing the rounds in the wider media of football. I'm talking about TalkSport, I'm talking about Sky, I'm talking about the BBC. It's switching. The narrative is switching slightly. So it's gone from West Ham have done well, West Ham have qualified for Europe twice in a row. You're now seeing it changing. What's wrong with West Ham? That's the story. That's the question that's being asked at the moment. And if that question's being asked by generic journalists, and the reason that's important is because that sort of journalist will be covering Brentford one week, Fulham the next week, well, not this week, because could have covered both of them. You know what I mean? Man City, they'll be up doing Aston Villa on another one, and West Ham. They don't have an encyclopedic knowledge of West Ham. When Paul Merson's sitting on Soccer Saturday or whatever it is, he'll give a generic answer. He'll just turn around and say, West Ham, David Moyes done a terrific job, brilliant, But it doesn't scratch below the surface. And I think once the line of questioning changes, then in the mainstream media, then that sort of switches up a little bit, and you find yourself being asked awkward questions. Not me, not you. David Moyes does. What's wrong with West Ham? And again, that feeds back into everything, and it's just sort of this sort of cycle of doubt and negativity there. And I did look at it, and I looked at this Van Aken link, and Van Aken talking about Monday. Basically, if I was David Sullivan, I'd want to be really sure that this signing and the signing of Emerson were going to do it. And I don't look at them as stellar signings. I have no problem with either signing, particularly if people are going, if it's doing well. But they are sort of squad signings. And I'm not sure it completely marries up with what David Moyes said, which is I will only bring players in if they're better than the ones that I've already got. Now, you can all interpret your own meaning from that. Here's what it meant to me. And that is, I want them better than the guys in the first team, so it puts the first team players on the bench, right? That's what I took it to mean anyway. So basically, we bring the striker in, that puts Antonio on the bench, which means I want to use the bench. We bring in a new left back, that puts Crespo on the bench, and so on and so forth. That's how it goes. This is not what David Moyes is saying now. David Moyes is saying, actually, the players that I've got are going to take a while to settle in. Well, this is not particularly good. And I look at Van Aken, as I say, who looks a decent squad player, don't get me wrong. And in many respects, I think at the moment, Souček's performances in central midfield, I'm not saying he runs into the box, his performances in central midfield are so bad, almost anyone would be better. I think Conor Coventry would have been better next to Declan Rice. I think Downs would have been better next to Declan Rice. But Van Aken's not that guy. I mean, he's not the box to box player that I was going to say that Souček is what Souček should be. I don't know. He keeps on vacating in the middle of the pitch, which annoys me. Anyway, you know what I think about it if you saw yesterday's video. And I just wonder if I was David Sullivan, I might be thinking, well, hold on a second. Am I going to chuck another 10 million at this guy, another 13 million at Emerson, for you to put them on the bench? I don't know. And I look at the team and what it's crying out for. What it's crying out for is a player that the rest of the players can get behind and be bedazzled by. A player like Payet, I know, look, I'm using an extreme example. Payet rocks up in training and all the players say, wow, you have to put him in a team. Look at this guy, he's going to take us to the next level. And I don't look at any of the signings and think that the rest of the squad think that. I don't think we have bought better than is currently in the squad, for instance. I think we bought sort of comparable players. I think Cornet's a good player. I think Scamacca will be a good player. But clearly, the fact that Cornet can't put Benrahma on the bench, the fact that Scamacca can't put Antonio on the bench, means David Moyes probably hasn't done what he said he would. And how's that play out in Sullivan's mind? I don't know. Look, I'm not claiming to have the answers. for a moment, I thought, let me have a little think about it from David Sullivan's point of view. I have a feeling, as the song goes, I've got a feeling, isn't it? Anyway, I've got a feeling. Tonight it's not going to be a good night, funny. I've got a feeling that we will sign Van Aken and we will sign Emerson. But it can go either way. It can either help Moyes out and we start to give points, and actually, they look fine, they look great, and Van Aken scores some goals. Or it can go the other way very quickly. I don't think it sails down the middle, because actually, I think if he signs those two players, we keep on losing games. Then actually, because of Sullivan, it may well hasten Moyes' departure.